There's this one place I stuck my gum on the wall somewhere, and every time I go near there, I always make a point to like walk by where it is. And it's like I was there like a couple of years ago, and it was still there. It's like 8 years later, the gum is still there. Yeah, I'm kind of like proud about
Planting
myself.
your
Like that's
DNA
like
on
my, yeah.
That's your legacy.
Yeah, it's my legacy.
That's your legacy.
Welcome to the Raised Eyebrow Podcast. This is part 2 of Pyramid Schemes. If you haven't had a chance already, hop on over, take a listen to part 1, where we explore and introduce what pyramid schemes are, what they're all about, why you should not get involved with one. Then you can hop back on over here, where you can continue the conversation with us as we explore more of this crazy, crazy world. Like the community around you shapes your ideas, right? So,
yeah.
And if your community is very small and close-knit, your ideas are small and close-knit to that community. But if you if you broaden your scope and you broaden your community, you introduce yourself to new ideas and new cultures that are not your own, and ideas that even conflict with your worldview, just so that you understand where someone's coming from. Yeah. So if you're like, say, if you're Christian, read the Quran, It's just so that you understand, right? Because you got to remember too, when in the Quran, when Muhammad ascended to heaven, he was greeted by Moses and Jesus. So they're homies. So according to the Quran. And so why are they fighting each other again if they're homies,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting. Like, usually when you go to like old places like, Israel, and then you realize like before a certain point, the people lived together peacefully. Like the Muslims and the Jewish people and the Christians were peaceful. And then something happens and then it changes. In Ghana, the same thing. Like I had Muslim friends. I had, and we're all cool. But then something happens and all of a sudden those people start attacking each other.
I was going to say, my theory is that it's all tribalism.
Yeah.
And I think tribalism kicks in when people become poorer and poorer, or when they have less and less resources, because then you go, okay, I'm trying to survive. So if I'm going to try to survive, I'm going to try to survive with like my closest tribe, and my closest tribe believes in such and such, and we practice such and such. And so when the outsider says something else and they're trying to take away my resources, then it keeps growing.
Yeah. I think there's the lack of education too, because usually the neighbors know what the other neighbor believes in. Like you have the Jewish next door guy and then the Muslim next door guy, and they both know that, oh, these guys believe in blah, blah, blah. But it's always somebody else, a third person coming in and then saying something else from what the two of them believe, which sparks a whole movement.
Yeah. There was this one movie that was nominated, I think it was nominated for an Oscar, Belfast. It takes place in
great movie.
Belfast, Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah, who knew? During the guy who directed it, Kenneth Branagh, I think that's how I pronounce his name. He grew up in Belfast in the late 1960s. He had a kid. He was Protestant. Kenneth was, and there was a kid who grew up down the street he was really good friends with who was Catholic. And prior to this, like everyone on the street, as he tells it, and this is kind of the way that the movie kind of reflects it, is they all kind of got along, and then eventually this Protestant mob moved through, or group, or not mob really, but and because Northern Ireland is Protestant and then the Republic of Ireland is Catholic. And so this Protestant mob came through and they kind of told them that you're not allowed to hang out with Catholic people, and they would mark the doors of Catholic families and they would kind of other them. They would kind of treat them like others, and they weren't allowed to go to certain places, and Catholic people were not allowed to shop at Protestant grocery stores. And essentially the effort was to drive them out of Northern Ireland. And that's what kind of led to this huge conflict that just happened in both countries, Northern Ireland and Ireland, for decades. And it wasn't until the Good Friday Accord, I think it was, or Good Friday Agreement, between the two countries, that they actually kind of like settled things down and were able to live somewhat peacefully. But it's like, and sometimes it's like it comes down to that tribalism, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're the same God, Protestant and Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
Like it's just because like they have a slightly interpretation, and it's because the Anglican Protestants, the guy who started it, Henry VIII, wanted to justify divorce. Like, what are you really fighting about, but when you're so immersed in it, you live in that, you're fighting for everything, it seems, but from an outsider perspective, it's like you're not.
Yeah.
So,
but you see,
live.
You see how it was a third person that came in and told them something.
Yeah.
It's always the third person, because usually the neighbors would play together and they're cool.
Yeah. Because they othered them.
The director talks about that.
Yeah.
There's a good interview with the director. I forget his name. Kenneth
Branagh. Branagh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was on Bill Maher talking about it. The movie is loosely based on his family's life.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying how in the States it was a summer of love, but in Belfast,
kind
of the opposite.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had and that little boy he was friends with, like he was saying the reason he made the movie is because that's been messing with his mind as an adult. He couldn't be friends with this other kid because he was a different sect of a religion. But it's interesting. That part of the world is pretty fascinating historically.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say a similar thing in Hotel Rwanda, that movie.
Oh man,
where you have movie. Like the people, like they lived together, they're friends, they're neighbors.
Yep.
And then the third person comes in and says, "Oh, do you know?" Which sometimes there's truth in some of the stuff, because you notice, oh, this group of people actually are the ones who hold power, which is
right.
Even the Jewish. It's like, wow. So then it makes the other people wait. Actually, yeah, what the third person said is true, and then a whole new movement starts.
Yeah.
Like Rwanda was interesting because like the two cultures were pretty much, from what I understand, very similar. Like very
there are pretty
minor
much
differences.
Families.
Yeah.
The only difference is, I think, if I'm correct, one skin is lighter than the other. If I'm correct, I am not 100% sure, but it happens to. So that qualified. So I don't know. Is it the British?
Belgians.
Belgians. So they would give special treatment to one and not the other.
Yeah.
There it is.
And so then
it's always resources, I think.
Yeah.
It always comes down to power and resource.
Yeah. Because they were stronger together, but by dividing the two groups, they were able to subvert control and maintain control in that colony. And then those
same strategy
those divisions in culture ran very deep over several decades, century, because this was like back in colonial times, right? And then eventually it just kind of all came to a boiling point.
Yeah.
Same strategies were used in the Middle East.
Yep.
Colonialism, where it's because that way the local population can't revolt because you have slightly different tribes forming a country. Which
India was like that. The British did that.
Pakistan, India.
A lot of Arab nations, and you look at the countries who are relatively, we'll say, successful or like more peaceful. It's more of a homogenous group where everyone's more or less the same religion, at least. Ethnicity might be slightly different, but it's not really known in the culture. You have to do like a DNA test or whatever. So if you look at, let's say, Lebanon, there's like 12 different sects and they can never really get along. There's always going to be something.
It's because all they talk about are what makes each other different and not what makes each other similar, or what qualities one group has compared to another, or the fact that one group's qualities and another group's qualities are the same qualities.
Yep. And then the lack of education makes people like it's different when you have education and you have resources and you have a culture. I think that's what makes Canada relatively successful. Like poverty, like there's obviously poverty in Canada, but It's one of the highest educated countries in the world. Resources are abundant. Even if you're an immigrant, life's not perfect, but you can figure it out.
Yeah, but it's also because we're small too. We're very...
Yeah, there's not a huge population here. But if you go to a country with very little education and the resources are tied up in, let's say like a small group of people, or like 3 dudes running the country, then like information is going to be corrupted and someone's going to say, hey, this group it's their fault.
Yeah.
Let's go kill them.
I would like to actually explore, I don't know, but I think someone should probably do a study on this. So if whoever is listening, you should tap into this, because the resources idea makes sense sometimes and it doesn't make sense sometimes, because you look at a place like Africa. Like, I remember I had homeless kids, friends growing up, and I never thought they were homeless. Because there was food, like mangoes, so many mangoes. During mango season, there's mangoes everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Coconuts, oranges.
Yeah. Wow.
The country is such a place that to be homeless, you can always find food to eat. I'm not talking about the city, but if you live like in the burbs and stuff, there are trees that has fruits that you can eat from. And there are these boys, we call them the Bela boys. They're hunters, and they hunt this special animal called the Bela. And it's so you got a bunch of dogs and you just hunt food. But this system, like, you see how you can make food, but then something happens, and then all of a sudden those people can't make food even though they can make food. Like, for instance, like, instead of becoming a farmer, you want to become an office worker. So then you go to school and you can't get the job. And then you're sitting at home. Meanwhile, you could put some seeds on the ground and it would grow. But you don't want to do that because it's beneath you. So then you get a bunch of people who want to be in the office, and then few people who want to grow crops. Another thing too is the country gets flooded with so much stuff from the foreign countries, which even doesn't make it enticing to become a farmer. Because if you grow tomatoes, the Chinese tomato is going to crush you. No one's going to buy it. So there are all these things that makes these poor countries even poorer, even though you could put a corn in the ground and you can eat, but it doesn't work because the system is broken. So I think that like, it's not like there's not, like, my dad is in Ghana right now and they're throwing food away because they make so much food and they can't sell it. There's no refrigeration systems. If you're a fisherman, you get so much fish and you just have to throw it away, because after the day's done and you still have fish left, it's gonna get rotten.
Wow.
So then they'll smoke it or something. But then it's like, so is it hunger? No, there's not hunger. It's just lack of systems. I don't know. Somebody has to study this and then see how,
Yeah, like, they don't preserve their food. Because, like, with the tomatoes, like, couldn't you... Because you can preserve them. You can make, like, tomato sauce, canned tomatoes.
The tomatoes... So China, right now, I think California is the number one producer of tomatoes. China is next. Chinese don't eat tomatoes. So a lot of Italian tomatoes that we buy in Africa are Chinese.
Interesting.
But it's not like we can't grow our own tomatoes.
Right.
So the tomatoes they make in China, they just flood the market in Ghana. Now the local farmers who make tomatoes can't sell their tomatoes.
Jeez.
Right.
Interesting.
You have local farmers who make milk. They can't sell their milk because the milk is coming from Italy. They make powder milk. Here in America, we don't drink powder milk. But in Ghana, that's like the main thing everyone likes to drink, powder milk.
They prefer powdered milk? Really?
Interesting.
No, it's not like they prefer it, but it comes in a package, it has a name on it. Yes. Why drink that bottled milk from that farmer next door?
Yep. So is there resentment towards all these countries importing all this stuff?
I don't think so. I think people don't even know. Everyone likes to have the foreign stuff because it's cool. you watch movies and people are drinking milk from the glass, and you're like, oh, I want to do that too.
Right. There's something romantic about
We
it.
do a really bad job of getting the right resources to the right people.
Yeah.
So basically, to summarize what you're saying is that there are problems with capitalism and globalization. This is news to me.
I think the free trade needs to be looked at.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because the free trade doesn't really allow the poor. Well, it's not like they're poor countries. Like, I think Africa is like probably like the richest, highly resourced country in the world.
Yeah, but Africans don't benefit from it.
Yes, Ghana and Ivory Coast are the number one producer of chocolate, and we don't benefit from it.
Yeah.
Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast because literally you walk on the street and by a river and you could pick gold on the floor.
Really?
And none of the people benefit from this.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all very interesting. Have you guys heard of 10 global trends every smart person should know?
So that's interesting.
I had a hunch that this conversation would lead to like capitalism sucks and all that stuff.
Like everything does.
Of course. Everything leads to capitalism
sucks,
baseball, right?
And be like, yeah, capitalism sucks.
Capitalism. But so this book, and there's a movement now, just to sum this up, of positive rationalists. So you have Steven Pinker, he's probably the more famous one. Marian L. Tupy, who wrote this book. You have Matt Ridley, Bjorn Lomborg. When it comes to trends, one of them is that we are actually there's the least amount of poverty in human history. It's not to disparage people who are in poverty, but he says as late as 1820, nearly 84% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. They lived on roughly $1.90 per day. This is equivalent of the U.S. dollar nowadays. So maintaining the current rate of poverty reduction will result in less than 5% of the world's population living in destitution in 2030. Essentially, he's saying that this is the least amount of poverty that's ever been in human history. So even though there is poverty, we're inching closer and closer towards stopping that. But he gets into it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because even poor people now, most people have iPhones and cell phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. I could read the rest of the trends. They're pretty interesting. So he talks about the great enrichment. So that's the poverty aspect. The end of poverty. Resources we're not running out of resources.
We're not?
Apparently not. So he says, adjusted for inflation, 43 commodities declined in price, 2 remained equally valuable, and only 5 commodities increased in price. On average, the real price of 50 commodities fell by 36.3%. So between 1980 and 2017, the inflation-adjusted global hourly income per person also grew by 80%. Therefore, the amount of work required per commodity became 64% cheaper. It gets like pretty technical. Like it's a lot of graphs in this book. There's a good interview with Marian Tupy who wrote it with Jordan Peterson. It's like an hour. I can send that to you guys after this podcast. But what else? Peak population. He says that the world will peak in population by 2080, and it'll fall to 9.5 billion by 2100.
Why is it going to fall?
He says global trends like falling child mortality rates, increased urbanization, rising incomes, and the spread of political and economic freedom all strongly correlate with families choosing to have fewer children. And it's inevitable that this will take over most of the world. The end of famine is trend 5. He talks about the number of calories per person. That gets kind of technical there. Trend 6 is more land for nature.
Really?
Expanding woodland suggests that humanity has begun the process of withdrawing from the natural world, which in turn will provide greater scope for other species to rebound and thrive. Trend 7, Planet City. What is this one about? The share of humanity living in cities rose from 751 million to 4.2 billion. So we're all going to be in one giant city which makes sense. Like if you look at suburbs, it's all high density buildings. That's the plan for every small town, because population is rising at a certain point, and it'll peak after there.
It'll all be Cincinnati,
and that's where the jobs are too.
It'll just be
exactly. Democracy on the march. He's saying that democracy will slowly have to take over. The percentage of country, it is taking over. The percentage of countries qualifying has increased by 31% since 1989, which is pretty astounding, apparently. And then the long peace, this one's the one that we're being tested with. This is the longest amount of time where there hasn't been a major war that has had catastrophic consequences. And then the safer world, this is the safest. Like we've been able to like foolproof ourselves from danger.
I do this podcast being recorded while the Ukraine war was happening, so
but it's not affecting. I mean, it's not affecting us right now. Like it's sad and exactly right now. So let's see where that goes. But so anyway, the way to summarize this whole spiel, quick book summary. Think the world is getting worse? You're wrong. The world is, for the most part, not getting worse. But 58% of folks in 17 countries that were surveyed in 2016 thought the world is either getting worse or staying the same rather than getting better. Americans had an even more glum perception. 65% thought the world is getting worse, and only 6% thought it was getting better. The uncontroversial data on major global trends in this book will persuade you that this dark view of the prospects for humanity and the natural world is in large part badly mistaken. Pretty much sums it up.
Interesting. I want to see the part where, we're all living in the cities, because it looks like everyone moved out of the city during the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, the cities will gradually just swallow up. Like, because you have these mega cities like Chicago, LA, New York, Toronto, like for North American reference, London,
just joining.
Paris. They just gradually just swallow up all the neighboring towns, and then just become part of the thing. Mm-hmm. And even though, like, for the longest time, like it'd be, like we have Toronto, and then there's a bunch of cities around it. Like, they'll eventually get swallowed up in like 100 years.
Yeah,
because it's just economically
but I mean,
viable.
Like, didn't lots of people move out? I have friends who moved into parts of the GTA that I had never heard the name before. I'm like, what? Where do you live now?
Yeah. Housing's cheaper.
Yeah, housing is cheaper. So I was thinking maybe people are going to move out of the city because now everyone is working from home.
But if everybody moves out of the city, that just creates a new city. I think that's what he's getting at. Like, the city just gets bigger. It's not like they're moving out of the city. They're just expanding the city by moving to the edges of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think work from home, while most of the population doesn't do it, I think that will expand our, like, where we live. And I think that the way that we kind of approach cities, like where you have like a downtown core where everybody works and people commute in, I think that will gradually fade away. Like, there will still be office buildings, but I think the amount of rush hour traffic will decline dramatically, right? Because people have proven over the last 2 years that you can work from home and that your company can survive without it. So the entire concept of an office is completely different, and nobody wants to go back to work, or at least the employees don't anyways. So, yeah.
Would you come back to, I mean, I can't ask you that question.
Would I go back to the office? I like the office in the way of, like, you have, like, if you use it purposely, like if I'm just going to go there and sit at a desk, I might as well just stay at home. But if I'm going to go to the office and, we work in advertising, like, which is a lot of like team-based meeting stuff and
collaboration.
Yeah, and that would be beneficial. So if you go there purposely, where it's like, okay, Tuesday I'm going to do this, and that's the reason why we're going to the office, then it has a reason for existing and a reason to come in, and then you can just focus on that. But then if I'm just going to go there just to sit at a desk and put my headphones on, listen to music, and do my job, well, why do I need to be at the office for that? Can I just save the bus fare?
Yeah.
And the hour in?
Yeah. And you're seeing, like, these smaller towns, this is in the GTA, they're all trying to I'm going to say the word capitalize, but yeah, like they're trying to build up their communities by attracting people into their town. Obviously, it helps their economy. And it's all high density plans, right?
Yeah.
Here's 3 new condos. It's cheaper, less taxes.
Yeah.
And there's a GO train right there. Subway station's not too far. You know, you could still be connected to Toronto if you want to. But you see this throughout the States as well. And it makes sense, right? So then you're going to have these... everyone's going to move into Austin, Texas.
That will be the city. That's the big city. Just Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Be neighbors with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan.
Yep.
It might become the biggest city in the world.
Ooh, Austin, Texas?
What is it?
Yeah.
It will be.
From a cultural
with the way everyone is moving in.
A hub there.
Yeah.
Because it's different from Dallas or Houston.
But see, they're moving in because of cheaper, taxes and stuff.
Yeah, it's the taxes, and it's all the regulations that California has. Like if you cross the street in the wrong way, you have to file regulation grievances, and it's so stupid.
Brutal.
Yeah,
Californians, they've lost their mind.
Yeah, they just regulate everything.
Yeah.
You want to install a toilet in your house, you got 5 years regulations. Filing. Yeah.
Jeez.
Request forms and stuff.
Nothing gets done.
Yeah, I just want to be able to flush.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Texas, people are just owning tigers in their backyard.
Yeah.
Florida's got crocodiles, just pets.
Texas attitude is you just do whatever you want. We don't care. Everyone has a gun, so if someone's mad,
just live your life. It's fine. What we're trying to say, folks, is balance is key.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with regulations, but chill.
Do you think Texas is just the counterbalance to California? So do they have to
Oh, that's interesting.
This,
I think so.
Because how the universe always has to balance itself out, or Star Wars, the Force has to balance itself out.
It might be Florida.
Oh, but
there's.
I think Florida's more in.
Florida might be
just sanity in general. So you have Florida, then you have rationalism in general.
It's its own country.
Yeah.
United States of Florida.
The people who have the means to get out of California, who, are quote unquote normal and have a brain and all that good stuff, where do they move?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be crazy people in California. You're going to have, irrational thinking and policies and blah, blah, blah. But, let's say if you lived in California, where would you go?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go
Boise, Idaho.
I don't know. You go Boise, Idaho?
Yep.
Hang out in Montana.
Montana's actually really nice.
I don't know. It is, but there's 25 people that live there.
But if you work from home, if you work from home, where would you work from?
Oh, okay. Good question. Well, it would have to be, at the very least, time zone compatible with my job.
Oh, so Florida.
Okay.
You fit in Florida. I could see you in Florida.
I can make it happen.
You could be Florida
man.
man.
I don't know, okay, so Florida man's grow a mullet. If I work in Toronto, can I work out of Vancouver remotely? It's 3 hours. So I might have to reset when I wake up. But if I have a meeting at 9 a.m. in Toronto, then I got to be online at 6 a.m. in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So it changes your lifestyle for sure.
Yeah, it does.
But I don't know. The world's changing, right? They call it the great exodus from the cities.
Yeah.
All these companies have to do something with those buildings downtown. All those there's still population that lives there, but these hubs for work. What happens to those buildings? Is it WeWork now? Is it
condos?
Are there incentives to get people?
Condos.
Yeah,
just convert to condos.
Like what a lot of cities need is they need apartment buildings with more than one bedroom. For families. Remember those?
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
You can convert a lot of buildings into that. You can you can have hybrid spaces where you have some parts that have residential and some parts that have business. You can convert some places into essentially just greenhouses where you just grow stuff, right? So it's a vertical farm.
Mm-hmm.
And
that sounds like capitalism. Alex.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, we need more tomatoes for Ghana, so
exactly.
Yeah, we need to grow more tomatoes.
Winston Churchill had a good quote. to sum this thing up, capitalism is a very imperfect system, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Very smart.
Until we have.
We're gonna. Yeah, Toronto is gonna end up becoming one of the biggest cities with the most rooftop farming, like green rooftops.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like urban farming.
I can see that. Yeah. We need more tomatoes.
Yeah, any city with.
Yeah.
I want those avocados.
More tomatoes.
Yeah. Although I don't think you can grow avocados in Toronto.
No.
I want to visit that country that does that tomato fight.
Tomato fight. What's this now?
I think it's
Spain?
in Italy.
It's got to be.
It's got to be Italy. Yeah. They have trucks filled with tomatoes, and then they do tomato fight in the streets.
That's awesome. They should do that here.
Yeah.
They should just settle protests and debates that way. Just like, one side for the protesters, the other side, just get it out. Get it out. No punching, no name calling. Just throw a bunch of tomatoes at each other. Call it a day.
Exactly.
I feel like Florida and Texas would win that one.
Yeah,
who's going to win in California? My face, my sunglasses.
Yeah.
You spilled my
Will
soy
Smith
latte.
is just slapping people.
Will Smith is slapping people.
Yeah. No, the crazies are going to win.
Yeah. There was
anyway.
I was for research for this one. I was watching this one guy. I forget what his name was. He had the YouTube channel, and he's going on about how suburbs are pyramid schemes. And yeah. So just to kind of take our current, I'm going to cleverly take our current conversation and tie it back to what we're supposed to be talking about.
Right.
And because this was all planned, listener,
circle.
we all planned this entire tangent to lead back to pyramid schemes.
Yes.
Because we're that clever about how we talk. So he was saying, like, because when you build, so you have so you have a town and you want to expand the town because you want to grow more programs. Like, so you want to build like an arena or baseball diamonds or a new school or a better high school or something like that, or a new hospital. You have to increase your revenue, right? But the only way to do that is you have to get more taxpayers. So the only way, so then you build more subdivisions, but then that puts more of a burden on your current amenities, like your police, fire, hospitals. So then you have to upgrade those, which means you need more revenue, which means you get more taxpayers. And it's like, essentially it's like a pyramid scheme. And then he was kind of talking about how the cities that have collapsed or kind of like fell in on themselves, and there's like a mass shrinkage in the city, was because they stopped expanding. There's one giant hole in his theory, which is that it's the individual homeowner does not necessarily pay for the full lot when it comes to it. It's industry and making sure that people spend money in your town or city, and when they don't just sleep there and then go and work somewhere else, that they're spending money there, and that you have local tourism, or you're attracting people to your city to spend money, and then you have industry that also pays property tax, and that attracts workers, and they tend to work closer to a place where they work. Right. He completely ignored that whole part of society. In the cities that he referenced, he failed to mention why that you had a lot of these factories leave, especially in like the Rust Belt in America, where you had a bunch of these factories go to other countries or other parts of the United States. Yeah.
That's interesting. I kind of buy that. Like, it's like, because even here in Toronto during the pandemic, we were bringing in immigrants. But then we stopped traveling, but still immigrants were coming in.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and you're like, why?
Yeah.
But it looks at a big part of Canada's economic plan is immigrants. It makes sense, right? Because our population that's quote unquote Canadian is aging. The labor force, the workforce isn't as diverse, and you need like specialists in IT, blah, blah, blah. So immigrants, like, you bring in a diversified, like, different categories of immigrants. So you have the construction workers. You also have the IT specialists and so forth.
Yeah, this is true for like Canada, US. Like, in order for us to grow, and similar to the suburb analogy, it's the same for the entire country, for the US and Canada. In order for you to grow your country, And to actually pay for a lot of these things and to pay for your aging population, you need more taxpayers. It's like society itself had like, and if you look at in terms of like a population chart from age 20 up, it is a pyramid, right? Because you need to have more people at the bottom of the pyramid to pay for the people at the top in terms of social support. And because when someone retires, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that their income level drops because they're not making as much money. They're living on a fixed income. So the amount of taxes that they're paying to the system also drops. That has to be compensated by another part on that income chart, which are the younger people on the chart. So
so you're saying our whole system is also a pyramid scheme?
In theory, yeah. Like, it kind of looks like it, right? And because if you look at countries like Japan, they have they're very top heavy because they have a very older population. Because I think it was like when they were rebuilding, like they weren't having a lot of children in like the 70s or 80s. And then they like having one kid was kind of the norm in Japan, or having no kids, because a lot of them, they would live in places where you only had 2 rooms, one of them being a bathroom. And so you couldn't raise a kid. So they have a very small like middle-aged group and younger group, but they have a lot of older people who need to be supported through their pension programs.
Japan's interesting. And like the people who are caught in the middle of the sandwich, right? They're raising the kids and they have the parents, usually 1 or 2 kids. Like there's a lot of depression and stress, especially with the way that culture is. The parent basically lives with you. I think it's one of the most like depressed countries in the world. At least Tokyo. Mind you, there's also parts of Japan, island areas where has the most centenarians, people who live to be more than 100 years old. They live on islands in Japan. Apparently, like it comes down to community. They have enough physical fitness. They live by the water, the beach. And I think it's women too. But and also their minds get stimulated. But I digress.
Even work is also a pyramid scheme, because you got the CEO at the top and a bunch of riffraff at the bottom.
That's one way how they're
doing all the work for you.
Like that's one way how they always kind of rationalize it, because if someone's on, so like one thing that they do with pyramid schemes is like if you're onto them, they would have like talking points to kind of like, oh no, but this is like, and that's one of the ways that they rationalize, like, oh, regular companies like this. So you have the structure, like everybody works on the bottom and they make the money, and the people at the top walk away with it. And so a lot of people who don't know how companies work or how they're structured, they would just be like, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, this is normal. So they try to like normalize the multi-level scheme.
Right.
And like what makes a pyramid scheme what it is when when you make more money off of recruiting than you do off of the products that you're supposed to be selling. Because what happens when the people below you to start your business, you have to buy a bunch of inventory and a bunch of products to sell. And then because you bought those products, the people who are above you get profit off of that. So by you buying more product, they make money. And then that person, in order for them to actually make money, they need to recruit more people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there are some schemes that usually what they would do is, because they weren't really selling a product, they're the kind that was like, oh, give me X dollars, and then next month I'll give you X dollars. Some of them would give flowers as a way to justify it in America, because American law made it so that it has to be an exchange. So then they started giving out flowers.
Damn.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Plot twist.
Yeah.
There's this
and it kind of makes it so like, how do you even protect yourself from this? Like, how do you
Good question.
My advice is never agree to something on the spot ever, especially if it's a financial decision. Just avoid impulse buys in general. If someone's trying to push you to do something, it's probably not a good idea. And if they don't allow you to think about something, like if what they're trying to sell you is a really, really good idea, then they will let you walk away, think about it, because it's such a good product and is a good sale that you will come back. So doing research on it, if what they're selling is good and they believe in their product and their product is true to what the claims they're making, then you can walk away, think about it, and come back, because everything on the internet will back up what they're saying. But if they don't let you do that, they're probably lying to you.
That brings me back to that random seminar I attended, where like everything's like, you got to sign up now, come this weekend, give us your check. Like, whoa, relax.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of ads are like that. Call now,
buy now,
sign up now.
Yeah, and
buy now.
And then that's the psychology, right? Like, okay, like ads do that, so why not this pyramid scheme that I'm not aware of?
It kind of normalizes it, right? Like you see an ad and it's like, oh, like new sale at this store, and you're like, oh wow, yeah, it's 60% off. Oh my gosh. And
I don't want to miss out on this. So,
and if funny thing, even with sales, like with products, every Tuesday a company will have a sale. So why buy this stuff when you can just wait every Tuesday to buy it?
Wait till you're ready, yeah. Like, aren't you guys gonna have a sale like in 5 days? No, we're not. How do you know that?
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's Black Friday next weekend.
Yeah, it's Black Friday.
And
then customers get smart and they just they just wait for Black Friday, and then Black Friday starts in like October now, apparently.
Okay. It's Boxing Month.
Oh yeah, Boxing Month. Yeah.
Used to be Boxing Day. Now it's been Boxing Week.
Oh, so it's the whole month.
It's Boxing Quarter.
Boxing Year.
Every day is Christmas.
Yeah. Well, everything's on sale all year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just tell us like what the real price is, and then we'll just agree to that, get rid of sales. Like, none of this impulse purchase.
That's the thing. They just mark up the prices like a week before, so you're not actually like, you might say $5. Like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna stand in line for a weekend and fight.
There's this one department store in
angry women.
New York. They had like I think it was like a table or a chair, and they listed it for like $100, and no one bought it because it was just regular price $100. And then they changed the label to $200, marked it down 50% off $100. It sold out instantly.
Jeez.
Same price. Yeah. It's all perception.
And that's capitalism.
That is exactly capitalism. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man.
One of my
like when you're comparing.
Yeah.
Right, when you're comparing a product, and it's like, oh yeah, this one is cheaper, but that's $200.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite pyramid scheme stories is I was in Dominican Republic, and one of the resorts, not going to name the resort, and usually at these resorts, for anyone who's been down them often, is that they would always try to get you to buy like timeshares or some kind of gimmick to kind of get more money out of you. And this one was trying to get you into like some kind of like executive club or some premium club or something like that. Let's say it was a premium club. And we knew what it was, and we just the day after you check in, you get this thing slipped under your door, and it's like, hey, whatever, you just toss it in the garbage, right? And so one time we're going into our suite, and we see the people who are staying next to us. I guess they checked in the day after us. And they're like these two bros. It's probably like from university. And they're both like, yo, bro, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, we're part of the premium club. And they're like freaking out. And they totally believe this whole thing. And they think that like they just struck gold. They're like, this is the best trip ever. It could be the best trip ever. They're like high-fiving each other and stuff. And they're like flexing and everything. and so we kind of like turn to each other and we're like, well, like, do we tell them? I'm like, nah, let's not tell them. They'll figure it out.
Lessons were learned that day. Spring break, bro. Spring break.
They probably own a timeshare. They have like 50 grand in student debt and a timeshare in Dominican.
What could go wrong?
We come down here all the time.
On that note, I think we
give final thoughts.
Yeah, let's do final thoughts.
I'll go first. My final thoughts are this. There is no easy way to get rich. We're all consistently sold this idea of instant success and individual freedom, yet no one has truly earned that except those who retire with a good pension. This dream that they sell us is just that, a dream. Those who fall into it aren't gullible. They're just victims of a hard struggle of climbing the economic ladder, making ends meet and wanting something many of us take for granted, disposable income. Pyramid schemes aren't a problem in our society. They're a symptom of economic inequality. Social media is rife with curated views of that perfect life, and it's hard to not want that and to strive to achieve it, which is probably why so many get sucked into these scams.
Man, you stole my final thought.
Sorry.
That's beautiful.
Oh, well said. No. I think I can't do that anymore justice. I was going to say 2 words, side hustle.
Yeah.
And there's no shortcut, man. There's no shortcut. You have to, work your way up. And if you develop enough skills, you can try to sell those skills. Maybe you find a passion on the side where we started a podcast. We're not making money off of it yet. No. We're just doing it as a hobby. But something like this that can make money down the line, if you have the means, of course. Not everybody has the means, and those are the ones that are most vulnerable to pyramid schemes. But I would say, spend your time educating yourself as best you can, and then use whatever knowledge, resources you get to develop a side hustle, learn about proper investing, learn how to save money, how to grow your money, and learn to spot when your money is being wasted on poor investments. Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. Don't fall into the dark arts of capitalism. Join the good force. Capitalism could be good too.
Yes. Yeah, I think my final thought is, in life is not the end goal. It's a journey. Every day counts, and sometimes we should learn to celebrate the everyday and not just the end, because usually, those fast people, they're going to make money all of a sudden. They're going to lose friends. And with all that money, you're not going to even be able to enjoy it. But usually think about it. There are times when you're telling stories where you're like, oh, remember when we were in the room eating chickpeas? We had no money. Those are the best stories. Right? So it's not going to be like, oh, remember when we were so rich? Those are boring. Build slow, and once you get there, enjoy it with family and friends.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Embrace the journey.
And remember, kids, it's not a race to the top, because the rat race never ends.
Exactly.